Well. Hey, Ethan, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Hey guys.
Actually, can you hear
Hey, everybody.
me clearly on this?
Hey Kelly. Let's see, lighting.
Hey, just checking. Is this work?
Yes.
Okay, just make sure it's good.
What's up, Peter?
How's everyone doing?
Good-ish. It's raining here.
It's raining.
So I said, I hope that doesn't affect turnout.
Yeah. It should boost it, right? If everyone's at home. Hey, Peter, were you able to download a copy of the presentation?
Yep, I've got it.
Perfect.
Hey, hello everyone.
Hey, Commissioner.
Hey. So you were able to get out of the other 2 meetings on your calendar at this time?
I'm not sure which other 2 meetings there were, but this was the one that I wanted to attend, so that's good. Please mute your microphone. How many folks are you expecting?
Ethan, what was the final tally?
So if there's about 20 community members plus whoever shows up from city departments among confirmed people, 30 if everyone shows up.
So, Commissioner, do you want to kick us off with a welcome to the groups?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you mind sending me the presentation that we'll be using? Looks like it has 63 images off on the side so that I can control my own sense of what's coming, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's a big file. So
Do you think it's going to be difficult? I'll have to, if you want me to download something, you gotta give me a password and all that.
are you on VPN? Can we just put it on the city's network and would that work?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know if I have tried to access something from the city network before on my laptop. I would be shocked if it worked.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Brandon Crawford.
Hey,
Afternoon,
Brandon.
Hey, Brandon.
Hello.
Hey, Brandon, were you able to download the latest presentation via the link, just so you have it on your desktop?
Yeah, I was, so thank you for that.
Perfect, great.
So we'll get started maybe at around 12:05 just to give folks time to join us.
Okay.
I see Vanessa there. How are you, Vanessa?
I'm good. Hi, everybody. Great to be here.
And I apologize in advance if you hear any barking. I've got a very nervous dog that gets a little anxious when it's raining. So
I've got one of those too. Oh, there you go. There's the first bark.
yeah.
So it's just a handful of us. I had an interesting conversation with a nonprofit called Confidence, the Confidence Project, and they have started a capital program to lease some retail space. And so I told them, you know, they're looking at North Lawndale and a couple other potential landing spots. So my plan is to put them in contact with the right people from our team, because I think I don't know if they're perfect in Austin, but they will be a perfect tenant somewhere.
Mhm.
It's an African-American woman and her husband. She's the principal, but he's chiefly involved as well. They're a great pair with a great story, trying to do everything they can to help our people in the neighborhoods.
That's great.
Awesome. It's great.
Hi,
to hear.
Peter. I just had a quick question. Did you say a nonprofit organization or is it a for-profit?
No, this one is a nonprofit, but I'm assuming somewhere along the lines, one of these big wealthy developers is going to be more than happy to take some of their less appealing storefront space, maybe a space that they couldn't otherwise fill or occupy, and offer it at a discount to a community-based organization that's doing good work. You know, obviously not the principal tenant we might be looking for in a lot of our developments, but I have to imagine there'll be a space somewhere along the lines.
That's a good segue to get started. We're at 5 minutes after 12 here. So thanks everyone for taking time out of your day to be with us and talk through some ideas and thoughts that we had in regards to development on Chicago Avenue. We actually have our Commissioner Maurice Cox with us today. So Commissioner, anything you'd like to share with the group?
Sure. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And it is fantastic to finally be at this point where we can begin to talk about the opportunity that Chicago Avenue is and Austin. And this is a workshop specifically around the opportunity for development and setting the stage so that what is proposed has always been shaped and formed by those who are on the ground, those who are invested in the vitality of that corridor. So it's great to see such a cross section of folks participating in it. This is normally the part that, community doesn't get to see. That is the kind of ideation stage. What's possible, what's not, where is development likely to happen, what are the alternatives, and all of it leads to a kind of increased expectation that this is a place worth investing in. So we're going to try to get a handle with you on the vision of what's possible, and then the results of these workshops will begin to inform any RFP that goes out. So there are many, many things that we get out of this. You get to determine, is this what we're looking for? We get to market the potential and create some excitement around investing in Chicago Avenue. And it is an opportunity to brand that corridor. And so it's a workshop, which means that it can be pushed and pulled and twisted and shaped according to your input. So it's not a fait accompli. We're going to be looking for real-time feedback, and our DPD team and the expanded bandwidth that the partners who will be introduced will provide are here at your service. And so our hope is to shape the content for what will go into an RFP that will be released in August. And so we are going to very quickly see where the real opportunity is. And this workshop is going to help shape that. And so this is where the rubber hits the road. This is what I think we all have been kind of waiting for, how the city can use its strategic ability to assemble land or market land to jumpstart what will be a much larger revitalization effort. So again, thank you for taking the time to do this, and you'll see from the material that's presented and the format how we'll be able to get some real-time feedback. And I'm gonna mostly be quiet and just kind of listen and observe, but thank you all in advance for your participation. So I'll turn it back to Gerardo.
Thanks, Commissioner. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Ethan Lassiter, who is our lead planner for the Chicago Avenue corridor, who's going to walk us through the agenda and just some kind of background information here.
Yeah, thanks, Gerardo, and thank you, Commissioner. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day. As Gerardo mentioned, I'm going to walk through this agenda and get to it. We have workshop goals, which we'll touch on very soon, but I want to direct you to 5, 6, and 7. The majority of this time will be spent addressing specific opportunity sites for new development that we have targeted for this workshop. And then we're going to do breakout groups. We're going to break into 3 groups so we can have kind of smaller discussions, hear more voices about the options and possibilities presented, but we certainly want this to be a dynamic process. Then we're going to bring it back together and make sure we can talk through what we'd like to see on these sites and what we've seen thus far. So getting to it, we know we have a lot of community voices invited. There were some late additions, so this list has some slight new additions. But we also wanted to point out that the city and our public partners are working with the Chicago Central Area Committee, really a consortium of the lead real estate design and architecture firms in the city. For this call, we will be led by and joined by Perkins and Will, Discoto Inc., and Lend Lease. That's Andrew, Peter, and Brandon, who you will see in your breakout rooms and who you'll see throughout this presentation. Sorry, really quickly, Kelly, if you want to introduce CCAC or their context a bit more, give me a second.
Thank you. My name is Kelly O'Brien, and I'm the Executive Director of the Chicago Central Area Committee. We are a 64-year-old civic group, and we have a very broad membership. The mission of the organization is to find opportunities where our members can give back based on their professional expertise. We have architectural firms, design firms, higher ed, developers. Again, it's a broad membership. We have a sister organization that is focused on the mega region. So although the name, the Chicago Central Area Committee, might lead you to think that we're only focused on downtown, that has not been the case for many years. And I would like to alert you that this time last year, we published a white paper titled A Central City Strategy for All of Chicago. And the first actionable project out of that policy paper was a partnership with Chicago, where we focused on 5 corridors. And we were honored when we had the opportunity to work with the talented team at DPD and Commissioner Cox. And we're working in 3 specific corridors with Invest Southwest. So it is a true honor to work in the neighborhoods. And I cannot express my excitement for what you're going to see today and the amazing talent of this team. So it's going to be a great day, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. So we want to acknowledge that there are certainly additional challenges beyond new development in Austin currently. We're very aware of COVID, its ongoing impacts to both people's health and to the economy, protests, and some preceding unrest, as well as just generally reopening is also a challenge. And public safety has also recently been a challenge. So we want to be aware of those. But getting to the goal of the workshop is really to determine parcel-specific development possibilities and priorities for Chicago Avenue. We want these to benefit Austin, and we want to focus on developing publicly owned land and, where feasible, partnering with private owners for larger projects, better projects. Again, CCAC is providing pro bono assistance to the community and to DPD to help this all happen. And we certainly want to acknowledge that this is not trying to be a new planning effort. We have a 2018 plan, the Austin Forward Together plan. We also have a more recent 2020 plan for the Soul City corridor, which is also Chicago Avenue. So we're definitely building on plans and priorities that have already been identified. Those previous priorities included a focus on entertainment and attraction. Obviously, a lot of this is the concept of Soul City. Food and dining came up in both plans and conversations we've had. There's a lack of sit-down restaurants. There's a lack of places to gather. So really addressing kind of cafes, healthier foods, groceries, and sit-down restaurants. Other elements that came up from previous plans and interviews have been a focus on health and wellness. Certainly we have some medical presence in the corridor, but more fitness, recreation options, family care, business support, and workforce support came up a lot in the plans and what we've heard thus far. So that needs to be a focus of this going forward. And then certainly in residential, we've heard that the street can kind of empty out in the evenings. And there's an idea that we need more residential above the ground floor. We need more eyes on the street in a sense. And we need to bring more energy by having more people and more consumers on the corridor. Some concerns not directly related to new development per se, but in attracting private investment, we heard repeatedly a desire for more profitable, job-generating, wealth-creating businesses and uses. We can get into social services, but there are existing nonprofit and social services on the corridor. We certainly want to be aware that, well, creating new development, we don't want to let existing assets decline. So we definitely want to preserve and invest where we already have investment. And public safety has certainly been a concern for the corridor, and we believe some of this work can help address that. So we are talking about Chicago Avenue from Austin on the west, the city border with Oak Park, to just east of Cicero, Kilpatrick, this 1.5 mile corridor. Within that, this same red border is Austin to Cicero. We have a retail trade area. A market area is really just the geography that retail stores on the corridor can pull their customers from. We're not saying there aren't larger draws or larger reasons to be on the corridor, but if you're going to a corner store or a grocery store and you live south of Lake Street or west of Austin, you probably have closer options. Again, closer doesn't mean better, but a retail trade area is kind of a first cut at who we can attract to the corridor most easily. We're aware of kind of demographics from that area, about almost 100,000 households. But if you look at this average age, we have some very old building stock. So an issue with attracting new tenants, new businesses is generally you need some newer buildings. So we could use some new growth. And a message we've heard over and over is we would shop here if we could. I think everyone in Austin, everyone near Chicago Avenue is familiar with this. There is massive retail leakage in Austin. As you know, people shop in Oak Park. So we have $80 million of consumer spending of consumers who live in Austin or live near Chicago Avenue who spend their money on groceries and on personal health services outside of the area. Both of those numbers, if we were to attract that business locally, would support a 16,000 square foot building. So there's some capacity for new development in those categories. Again, we know that there's shopping happening to the north, to the west, to the south from the Chicago Avenue corridor. And then we talk about Chicago Avenue is a traditional commercial corridor, and we really want to talk about activating that. The easy answer has been kind of traditional retail, food and beverage, pharmacy, grocery stores. However, we're also aware that retail is a challenging environment nationally to be in for new development, certainly within this area as well. So we have to be aware of things that can help activate and bring vibrancy to the corridor beyond traditional retail. Again, this echoes a bit of what we've already heard from the plans and interviews. Health and wellness, clinics and fitness came up a lot. Economic and workforce development programs and offices, a civic and cultural component. Again, we have the library, but there's also building on Soul City, and then professional services, childcare, if a government office may be feasible or usable here. So again, there are a number of marketing conditions. The market study work is being advanced with the CCAC team, but some very preliminary high-level findings are shown. A real positive is that there are major community assets and anchors on the corridor. Many of them are stakeholders that are in this room right now. And then challenges certainly include this massive leakage of retail spending. So while trying to attract new development, we want to be very aware that new development on the corridor will likely need public subsidy to be realized. With that, we want to jump into describing and explaining the opportunity sites we're going to focus on today. And for that, I believe Brandon is taking that.
Yeah, so thank you, Ethan, for that introduction. So I'm going to just go ahead and briefly touch upon some potential opportunity sites that we've identified along the corridor. So here you can see the full stretch of Chicago Avenue that we're looking at. So Austin on the east, Kilpatrick, or I'm sorry, on the west, Kilpatrick, Cicero on the east, with Central and Laramie being kind of in the middle page there. CTA bus stops are outlined. It's a little difficult to see, but the sites of interest are the red hatched boxes. And then we differentiated between publicly owned and privately owned sites. So privately owned are shown in orange, and publicly owned, whether that be like a library or streets and sanitation outposts, are shown in blue. Go then to the next slide. We'll see the three corridors that we've broken out. So I'll start with the central corridor, which is that box in green. So that's central on the east, with Laramie on the, or I'm sorry, central on the west with Laramie on the east. There's a little bit of overlap there with Laramie and central between the east and west corridors respectively. Second is then that east corridor, which is from Laramie on the west to Kilpatrick, Cicero on the east. And then finally the west corridor, which is the corridor closest to Oak Park, and that's Austin on the west and Central on the east. So there's a few sites throughout the three corridors that we've identified as potential opportunities, and we can dive into that a little bit more in the coming slides. So again, yeah, there we go. Here's, we'll start with the central site. So I'm sure we're all familiar with the Laramie State Bank. It's a beautiful building at Laramie and Chicago Avenue. It's next to it's got a surface lot to the west of it. And I believe an old shopping plaza that's vacant on the far west side. So that's a site that we've identified as a potential opportunity site. We think that the Laramie State Bank site is architecturally significant, could be adaptively reused for office space, community centers, something that brings people to the area. And then on the eastern side, we've got, this is a kind of a mashup of a public and private owned parcel. So the Chicago Public Library is on the far west side. The Chicago Department of Streets and Sanitation Outpost is located here as well. And all of this is just west of the Austin Health Center. So that Austin Health Center is already a great anchor for us. I think this is an opportunity for us to kind of build upon the activity that's already occurring at Cicero in Chicago and draw some people further west. That's the eastern site. And then last, we have the western site, which these are two brownfield sites. I think they've been vacant for about 20-ish years. The aerials I looked at, it seems the buildings came down in the late 90s. But this is just east of Austin Boulevard, and these are sites that we also think can draw from the there's a lot more commercial activity once you cross Austin into Oak Park, and we can kind of build off of that momentum and pull some of that eastward.
Thank you. And with that, is this better for hearing me? I imagine.
Yes.
So jumping into breakout groups, our real goal is to get everyone talking. Everyone's been assigned a breakout group. In this, there will be kind of smaller discussion. We have one of three groups. Each one will be led by a representative from DPD and a representative from CCAC, Brandon, Peter, and Andrew. So again, just basic rules of etiquette. One person speaking, it's still a Zoom call. Be courteous and respectful. And then we really want to devote kind of 10 minutes each to discussing the central site and options for that, the eastern site and the western site. So some questions going in for facilitators and for all of you to think about are given development priorities shown in the 2020 Soul City Plan and the 2018 plan. What are your two development priorities along Chicago Avenue? What building scale and program or use makes the most sense based on what you've seen and what we've gathered thus far? Which of CCA's site options should change? And are there community priorities that are missing? So given that, I'm now going to break everyone into separate rooms. This pop-up will appear hopefully right about now.
Hello?
Welcome back. Welcome back. We'll just let people filter in. Let's see. All right. Looks like
Hey,
Timekeeper.
Ethan, we're back.
The timekeeper says it's over.
Yeah, there's no 5 more minutes. It's a hard
we
stop.
had a minute
not
warning.
get the broadcasts?
Yeah.
Did not go through? The 15
Oh, yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
10 minutes?
Yeah, we saw it, but you know, it's hard. It's
It
hard
did, but
with
once that clock
so
starts
many good
ticking.
ideas.
Yeah. Well, given that, we really want to jump to it. We can continue the discussion. We just want to have everyone on the same page, talk about what sites generate the most positive feedback, most challenges, surprises. I can jump back, if helpful, to these alternatives, which we were just talking about in our group. Whatever group seems to have been at the, I don't know, saying something at the last second, they can go ahead and start. Sounds like group 3.
Go ahead.
Yeah, group 3, that would be the group led by Gerardo. Yep.
So we were just talking about, we kind of got cut off on alternative 3 and just posing a question to the group about, you know, the Soul City corridor and branding, and particularly for this site being that it is kind of a gateway from Oak Park. You know, what are thoughts about that, this idea of some kind of cultural hub, whether it be, you know, a dining destination or some other type of entity kind of occupying part of that ground floor in either of the scenarios?
Gerardo, there's a desire to know, I guess, a little bit about the 3, who was in the other sessions. I don't know how you want to do that before they jump in.
So I think that's a good point. All groups covered all 3 sites in the amount of time that we had allotted. Group 3 was led by Andrew and myself. Who can we just do maybe a roll call so folks understand what group they were in?
Hey, Gerardo, actually, for group 3, I was taking attendance. I could recount who was in group 3.
That'd be
Okay.
great.
Yeah,
Thank
let's
you.
do that.
So we had Flavian Prince, John Hooker, Rufus Pulfus, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your names correctly, Ron Carter, Elizabeth Lockhart, Alderman Mitz, and then Brian McCoy and Gary Pachuki from IBT, along with Kevin O'Malley from CDOT.
In the other groups?
I did not take down everybody's name, but this is Brandon Crawford. If everybody who was in my session, if you could just.
I got some names here. Daryl Washington, Darnell Shields, Latricia May, Jose Abonce, Jim Harbin, Chip Hastings, Jamil of DPD, Jamil Fati of CTA, Vanessa Israel of CDOT, and then late was, I believe it was Dr. Prince, was that right?
And then I'll just say from group 1, we had myself, Brian Hacker, and Peter Ousley kind of facilitating it, but we had Malcolm Crawford from AAA BNA, Vanessa Stokes from SSA 72 for the corridor, Shirley Fields, Margaret Gardner, I think, was on via cell phone. And then we had Nelson and Terrence Johnson from the city. Hope I didn't miss anyone.
Yeah. So we've got one more question for Darnell. No, all was there a unique focus and objective for each group? No, the idea was that all groups would look at all 3 sites at the same time and just get some feedback and thoughts from each of the groups on the site. We could come back and discuss them together, or maybe maybe that's how we can start this discussion. if we want to do a quick summary of what were some of the highlights of each of the groups, and that might help some, kind of orient folks in the room. Before we do that, Vanessa, I just saw your question in the chat to Ethan, and the answer is yes, we will definitely share this presentation after the meeting. So whoever was group one, would someone mind giving a summary or some of the key highlights in regards to the different alternatives?
What were we group one? I'm sorry.
No, sorry, that was us. That's me. So yeah, please group one chime in if there's something I'm missing. But very briefly, I think we recognized Laramie State Bank as kind of a pressing need. Everyone is aware of the building and the issues with that building. I think we liked alternative 2 with that plaza. I think would be of interest. Both 1 and 2, I think drew the most attention. We talked about, is there a way to actually get a bank tenant back in the bank building? We know there's a banking need in this area, but in general, we're pretty aligned on that. The second site, the eastern site, kind of jumped into a larger discussion about challenges with churches on the corridor or storefront churches that then limit the ability of liquor licenses or kind of new bars and restaurants entering. That'll be a very brief summary of that, but that was longer conversation. And then for the western site, certainly Malcolm is very familiar with adjacent property owners and with his own interests. But the third alternative that we think kind of most embodies some of what Soul City is also trying to do, creating this plaza, creating kind of retail up to the street that kind of embraces the sidewalk. People can see it. It makes things safer as well with eyes viewing it. There's a brief summary of 3 sites for our group.
This is Peter Isley. I would just add that there was an emphasis in the conversation about how we organize the site, which I think is where Ethan just left off, the idea of the importance of the placement of those individual components could have a significant impact on the overall success of the individual projects.
Group 2, Brandon and Mike.
So our discussion, we focused in on the Laramie State Bank, also the streets and sanitations facility that's existing. It's an eyesore. We didn't so much get into, we touched a little bit on, architectural design and massing. The focus, I think, for our group with key takeaway was that we were more focused on stimulating economic development and what that looks like over what the end product of the buildings looks like, because that's sort of second to the actual use that comes out of these parcels. So really what we can do to stimulate economic development and promote a sense of ownership amongst the community as the area continues to evolve and changes over the coming decade or so.
Yeah, so for group 3, it was interesting to hear that one of the other groups, one of the key takeaways was the need for banking, because that certainly came up with us for the central site as well with the Laramie State Bank. So this idea that there's a need for banking, but also a need for banquet or event space within the community. Folks in the community have to go outside for those types of services or whenever they need to have events. The other kind of thing that came out of kind of in relation to the central and eastern site was this idea that there should be a focus on retail and a priority to be able to activate ground floors and enliven kind of street walls. And I got the sense that particularly for the eastern site, if nothing else, that retail would go a long way in providing a service, being that the community lost its pharmacy a while back and there aren't any grocers of that size. In terms of the third site, we kind of got cut off. We couldn't finish our discussion, but it did sound like this idea of organizing the site with residential and bringing in this idea of a arts and culture hub, however that may manifest itself to the site, was something that was preferred, being that, you know, this is also kind of a gateway to the community coming from the West.
And if I could build on, I want to add one other thing about our group's discussion. Again, this is Andrew Broderick of Brickasville, was that, you know, these three sites, while really purposeful topics for today and great feedback with opportunity, you know, there are other sites that we're looking at, and that others, many in the community, are looking at as well. And I just want to highlight, you know, Mr. Carter was talking about in our group the site between Lawler and LeClaire for Veterans Village housing, and on a sites owned publicly and privately there between that whole block long stretch as well. So I think today's discussion here is certainly helpful to get input on these three sites. There's other sites too that we're looking for input on too. So.
We've covered a lot of this. I don't know if there are any kind of larger takeaways. Certainly, if you think of or come to other comments over time, email DPD, email this email address. We can certainly go back and continue the conversation. We just want to touch on the timeline going forward. We've already reached out to, and we will continue to talk to community stakeholders, especially property owners. We know these are specific properties that some of you on this call own. So we will be continuing that. We still have our monthly Austin Invest Southwest Community Roundtable discussions. This will be a key component of the July roundtable. And then we'll continue every month, August, September, October. It's going to keep happening. Our goal is that first RFP for the Laramie State Bank building will come out in August. And then we want a kind of, again, this group to review what we receive from those bids from developers, given that there will be a lot of steps in between that process that we will get updates on and share out. With that, it's really open to other conversations, that anything that we feel like we haven't touched on yet or that was missed or didn't come out in our kind of coming back to the full group discussion from any of the stakeholders on the call.
And just general questions. I mean, not necessarily, I mean, they're to prompt thoughts, but if you have a thought or a question that you'd like to share, please feel free to do so.
Only thing, let me see. Let's see.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, so my only thing is, as we're going and as we're creating these properties, that there be consideration for architecture that looks like the community, or that looks like, that has cultural connections to the architecture. So I think that that's a good thing. I know, just straight brick or straight, other kind of surfaces, but surfaces that actually, when you're coming down through Soul City, you kind of look as when you're on a Division Street, where they have the Puerto Rican community, and they have that Teresa Rodin building that looks like you're in Puerto Rico. So those kind of considerations as we're developing those properties. I know Laramie State Bank building is just beautiful the way it is, that architecture. But as we're going, that the architecture helped to mirror. So and that was just one of the questions that one of the things that I wanted us to consider. And that Laramie State Bank building, whatever those out buildings look like, that we have some consideration for cultural architecture.
And I like to just add to that. Thank you, Malcolm, for that, because I agree 100%. I like to add, as a realtor and knowing this market and the Austin community, the lack of inventory. I understand that we do need the veterans, we need all of that, but in certain areas of the Chicago Avenue corridor close to Oak Park, I'm just thinking that we will do more mixed-use properties that are more upscale, more luxury, because we need to draw people that can afford to to attend. Well, that's not the right word, but to frequent the establishment the commercial establishment that we would be putting there. I just wanted to add that, and I'm very excited about this project.
Well, that's great feedback. That's great feedback. And I think one thing that's worth noting is, in terms of the architecture, Malcolm, is these are really right now concepts and thoughts and really designed to generate ideas from this group. And I think another key kind of takeaway here is that the CCAC team is doing this pro bono. And as a result, they're essentially conflicted out of any development work in this corridor related to this effort. And what that means is that they're essentially setting the table for other folks to come in here and do this implementation and respond to this RFP. And, you know, our expectation would be that local, you know, local professionals or folks that professionals that have an understanding for the community would be working with the community to kind of develop develop these alternatives in a way that work for the community as well.
I don't think I know how to.
I just wanted to add one thing too. This is Vanessa Stokes. It would be nice to have, and I agree with what Shirley said. I think it would be great to have some upscale spaces along the corridor. Also, to attract, just like culture-related types of events. It would be great if we can have a space where we have like artist housing and like artist like live work kind of space like they have on the South Side. It would be really great to have that kind of space too, because that can also help to create that kind of culture that we're looking to, to really bolster on the corridor. So I don't know where that would be, but I just wanted to put that out there.
If I could just add on to that, I know, sorry if there's a bit of background noise, but I know that Bronzeville specifically is working on trying to do a lot of exactly what it is that we're talking about here with the live from work, studios for artists, and they're really trying to reignite the jazz scene down that way. And there's a lot of positive momentum in Bronzeville. There's, record-setting home prices. There's a lot of new construction. I would just then think that we should try to differentiate ourselves from that a little bit, rather than, if I don't want us to try to create the exact same environment that Bronzeville is creating on the west side, and then we're kind of warring against each other for similar businesses. I would like us to try to, be a unique destination.
I just wanted to say something. I believe Commissioner Cox is speaking right now, but we can't hear him. So you guys are like talking at the same time.
No. He's trying to be on 2 meetings at the same time.
Oh, okay. I was like, what is he doing? That's so weird. Okay, sorry.
He's listening and participating on another call as well.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Brandon. Thank you for adding that.
I think there's a good question.
But I just wanted to, it doesn't have to be on the Ave, but there are other spaces that are available. There's that church that's on LeClaire and Rice that's sitting there empty. Is beautiful. That's something interesting. But, like I said, I'm just putting it out there.
And I think Darnell Shields has a question for DPD in the chat box there about the how DPD is approaching the planning and implementation and the scope.
Darnell, can you provide a little bit more on that, just so I understand the question, or we understand the question?
Yeah, I'm just asking, is there like I know that there's the CACC plan, highlighting like Soul City Corridor and like how and what that can look like, and the different things and spaces to be able to take advantage of, and similarly in the quality of life plan, suggestions around access and parking and things of that nature. But I'm just wondering, is there some type of outline of the scope that, you know, that really kind of showcases and illustrates, articulates like how DPD is approaching the planning and implementation for development of moving forward on a lot of those recommendations.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing, we're going through a visioning session right now, right? And there's this roundtable set up, but I'm seeing RFPs come out for developers. And so if there's an RFP coming out for developers to develop, it doesn't seem like a lot of the different guidelines that need to be established are in place to ensure that the things like what Malcolm just brought up about making sure that the look and feel of this corridor as it's being developed really reflects the culture and what Soul City it's been suggested it should look like, and those types of things. And so I'm just curious about that. Like, how do I think we should be knowing that more on the front end and having more of a sense of what that is and how that looks, versus it just kind of dropping on us. Because like I said, it still feels like things are just dropping on us, and we have to react or respond to. But again, I think folks have been very intentional about what they want to see. And so where's the assurances that that's actually going to be adhered to?
Okay,
Yeah, no.
say something real quick. I don't know if Malcolm mentioned this or not, but we've been doing this for the last 5 years. And we actually have plans and renderings. I'll let Malcolm talk a little bit more, because this is new to us. We've been doing this a minute, at least 5 years. For me, Malcolm been doing it a lot longer. So, yeah, he's probably on another call now. We have renderings and everything.
Sorry, I'm getting. Yeah, that's better. So yeah, so to answer your question, Malcolm, the design guidance portion of the design guidance portion of this exercise, the intent is for it to be included in the RFP, and that is certainly a discussion that we intend to have with local partners, right? And so again, these are just massings. These are, you know, how do we divide up the site potentially, right? What are the different things that could fit here? And it's really kind of the first step to get a sense for, are we on the right path in terms of uses? You know, there's a couple other steps. The next step is what's the market feasibility, right? And what can the market absorb here? And our partners at CCAC are helping us kind of determine that. They've already done some preliminary work that allowed us to kind of make some assumptions here. And then, yes, there is this idea of, okay, what do we want these buildings to look and feel like? And that is something that, you know, we certainly intend to have that discussion with our stakeholders. And what I'm hearing, Darnell, is that you want to be part of that discussion as well. And that's completely, that's completely okay. And, you know, the other kind of part that I'm hearing is, so, you know, we did look at those previous plans, and a lot of that was really focused on public way improvements, right? And how you treat the street. And obviously that's very important to us. And so that's kind of, you know, as we set this framework, that is a discussion that we're having with our partners at the Department of Transportation, to kind of start to figure out how do we get to that vision essentially.
Gerardo,
yeah.
if can I contribute as well to this portion of the conversation?
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, apologies, because I've been now trying to listen to another meeting that I'm supposed to be in. But I just wanted to say that part of the reason why we're trying to imagine what's possible on this site and what makes sense relative to the expectations that you as kind of co-investors in the Chicago Avenue plan is so that we can actually run some numbers and understand what is the level of subsidy that any of these projects would need. So if we can start to say it's 30,000 square feet is on this site and it's going to have a retail component, we can run development scenarios and basically say, what is the non-serviceable gap? And we can, when we put this out for RFP, we know that we can fill that gap. And this is why, I mean, this is kind of why we're doing this exercise, so that we understand. I mean, if it turns out that, you know, to make all of these projects work on all 3 sites, it is X millions of dollars, when the Invest Southwest, you know, bank has only this amount, then we know we have to adjust our expectations of what we can support and what we can't. And so this is work that the city has never done before you put out an RFP, to actually do all of the math and understand what's possible and what's not. So that's also another benefit, so that we can now say it's going to take, you know, $30 million to underwrite these 3 projects. And then what does that leave for the other projects that are coming, that are already out there? And so we say, well, maybe we only can advance 1 of these, because we have a pipeline of projects that are already there. Like, you know, we heard about a project for veterans housing. We don't know what their need is going to be for additional resources, but we can now, you know, put that in the mix and understand it relative to the sites that the city is advancing. So for us, it's important both to understand whether, you know, we're on the right track relative to development opportunities, and do we have enough money to support them when these proposals come in. If that helps or adds something to, like, why go through this exercise. Thanks for that. Thank you for letting me put in that 2 cents. That's all I had to say.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, another comment that I'll get to in a second, but I just want to be sensitive of everyone's time. Thank you. We've taken almost 90 minutes, but we have 1 last question.
So Darnell's question is, so how can you issue an RFP for developers that include this prior to DPD synthesizing all the factors you speak of? And, you know, if I could take a stab, this is the process of synthesizing, right? And so we need to understand all these factors, and this is one of them. Financials comes into play, as well as community needs, wants, desires. And so this is the process that we have to go through in order to get there. I don't know if that helps, but you know, it's an iterative process for us. So we'll go back to the drawing board. We'll take this into account. We'll start crunching numbers. We'll come back to the community with some of these concerns, or, you know, where we're at in the process, given the concerns, and you know, we'll evaluate then as well. And so, as Ethan mentioned, if you go to the timeline, you know, the July roundtable is likely going to focus on this effort, right? So that's a time that we have. We also have, you know, if we do proceed and RFP in August, the community will review those proposals with us, right? And help us understand what priorities are based on the process that we have now. And, you know, as we kind of review proposals. So for us, this is really, you know, this is really a continuation or a continuous discussion that we intend to have.
Okay, and forgive me, I'm asking a bunch of questions, but so basically the outlook is that all of these factors will be synthesized prior to August 12th's release of this developer RFP. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what we're working towards.
Okay, I was just trying to understand, because like when you see a timeline like this and you don't have all of the things that we just talked about, you have no way of knowing that that's, you know, what you guys are doing on your end.
No, understood. And I think we can do a better job of refining this timeline a little bit for everyone, for sure. So Ethan, do you, if there are no other questions, do you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. Again, just thank you everyone for taking the time. As Darnell has been articulating, but I think we can show more clearly, this has been a process within DPD. Soul City Plan came out in February, right? So this is really about implementing that. And as the concern was expressed, the goal is to show the developer, this is what the community wants to build. This is what the city knows it will cost. This is the gap, and get developers who will fulfill that role. We're not, I will say as someone doing the RFP, it's a very different RFP than what the city has done before. And the goal is to really guide that process moving forward. So it reflects what we've talked about today and what we've seen in the plans thus far. So please, we have this July roundtable coming up. We're reaching out to individuals that we haven't talked to yet, property owners as well. But again, I want to be sensitive of time. So thank you all for taking the time. And please reach out if you have any more comments or questions.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Action, but that will be there, ready to go.